everybody getting excited for this next episode. So while you're all logged in and look down at that red subscribe, please click it. It makes such a difference to all of us podcasters, any podcast, my podcast, any other podcast. Hit subscribe. It really, really helps us become a great podcaster and get a following. So everybody look down, click it, subscribe. Thanks. All right, everybody. I am excited, and I'm sure you're like so tired of hearing me saying this pretty much every guest, but that's just the way it is. But this guest, I have to tell you, when I did an intro call with him quite a while ago, I really was looking forward to the day where I actually did the podcast with him. I tried not to ask too many questions because I really like our conversation to be authentic. But let me tell you, on the time that I was on the phone with him, Mr. Shaun Grant, he's remarkable. He has such a background story, and I can't wait for you to meet him on a more personal level. He's been in movies, he's been in commercials, and I have to tell you, when I was looking through his information and researching him, I was like, hey, wait a second. I've seen that commercial. I know this guy. Well, I know him, but I feel like I kind of know him now. But he's a remarkable man. Talk about giving back to his community and to people just in general. Him and his wife, they are just like, they have just genuine hearts and are so kind and so personable. I really am so looking forward to this interview, and I hope all of you enjoyed as much as I do. So I can't wait to bring you the man that does it all and does it well, is Mr. Shaun Grant. All right, everybody, here he is, Shaun Grant. Woo! He's with us. I'm so excited. I want to ask a million questions, but this man has just, I know he's got a story to tell, a story that is going to be so relatable and so important to all of you, and everything he does because of that story with his wife. I mean, this is the man who truly does it all and just wows you every time. So I finally get to talk to him face to face with all of you, and I'm taking up all your time, Shaun. I'm so excited. I can't help it. So Shaun, you're on.
Hi, how are you, Shannon?
Good, very good.
Good. I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to take this opportunity to share my story and to just use it as a chance to uplift and inspire people, which is what my life is about. And I'm very happy and excited to be able to have this moment. So thank you very much.
No, thank you. So tell everybody your backstory. I know where you came from and what led you to every step in your life, because you've got a lot of steps. I mean, some people try to accomplish one thing, and you have fabulously accomplished so many. So you are a 100% inspiration. Well, okay. I keep talking over you, so go.
Oh, no problem. So where do I begin? So I originally hail from New Orleans, Louisiana, and I grew up in very challenging, a difficult environment. And that really enabled me to build a lot of resilience, a lot of, just being able to meet challenges head on, because, growing up, I think in the 80s and 90s, in that city, there's so much happening as far as like crime and just things to get into that don't really add up to a life well lived. So thankfully, my mom got me into sports early on, and yes, that's kind of where my journey began. Yeah.
I'm an athlete. I'm a soccer player, dancer.
That's where it kind of
believe in it. I wholeheartedly believe in the team effort.
Yeah. It's between the organizational skills, between being able to work as a cohesive unit with people, and to basically, that's kind of the first area that I really learned to like uplift and inspire people through my teammates, and wow. So it really played a big part in my life, which is why it was so hard to have to walk away from it, from injury. But, I had such a love for athletics. I had a love for performing, but the real love I had is for people, and so for me, it was always about, I feel like my ideals as an individual are compassion, love, and kindness. And so as long as I'm sharing in implementing those three ideals into everything that I do, you know, everything seems to work really well. Wow,
I wish there was more of you, Shaun. Gosh, that's just like, yeah, you get it.
Yeah, it's you know, ultimately I think that's what we're here for. You know, whether you know whatever you believe in, you know, we are here to help each other and to help each other to expand in love and being able to do what's true to our hearts. And
Yeah.
that's, I feel like that's the primary objective, you know.
So you said you had an injury that took you out of sports?
Yes. So I literally was a football player. Football was my main sport, but I played a lot of different sports growing up, but football was my thing. NFL dreams really, really kind of, you know, barreled down on making that come to pass. But a lot of different things happen and it doesn't unfold. And at the time that can seem like, you know, my life is falling apart because that's what actually happened. Like I, you know, was on the brink of committing suicide. You know, I just didn't know myself after football had been removed because it was so much of my identity. Right. And so I just lost myself completely. And it was that first bout with rock bottom that kind of really reinforced that whole, like we talked about the New Orleans thing of being able to handle adversity, being able to handle, you know, to be resilient and to just battle back, you know. So I had that all. And then I finally figured that out once I was able to really kind of pull myself back up. And then Hurricane Katrina wind up here.
Wow. So you were there during Katrina. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw it on TV and I know TV does not ever put it in the right perspective. And it was horrific.
Yeah.
Horrific.
It's one of those things. And there's a life lesson that I learned in that entire experience. So I was 23, about to turn 24 when that happened back in 2005. And I can remember at that time, my life was just kind of like, okay, where am I going? I think I was working like 3 or 4 jobs, just trying to like, you know, at that age, you're money crazy. So you're trying to like get everything figured out. And I just didn't have it figured out. And then this storm comes and, you know, being from the South and in Louisiana, New Orleans, especially, you know, you throw a hurricane party, you have a good time, you leave town for a bit, and then you come back the next day. But Katrina was an entirely different story. They literally said, okay, yeah, you can't come back because the city's flooded.
There's nothing there. Yeah.
And so you're watching on the news as like everything just kind of crumbles and everything you've ever known. So like, you know, at that time I was only alive for like 2 decades pretty much. And it's just like my entire life is just gone. So that was one of the biggest lessons in my life because it taught me the importance of relationships and understanding that although everything outside of us is wonderful and great to enjoy, what matters is what's inside of us and when we share that with each other, right? So that was a lesson I had to learn. It was a hard lesson. Like I said, it wasn't like I just took it as like, oh, you know. It was a difficult lesson, but it was one that has really helped me to not get so attached to physical stuff or approval or achievement and things like that. Because when the bottom and the literal bottom is taken out from under your life, you know, it wakes the soul up in a way that nothing really can, you know.
Yeah, I would like, it's one those times it either humbles you or crumbles you.
Exactly. That's a perfect way to put it. Yeah. So, you know, that happened and that kind of had me around. Just really trying to figure out, because I think when we're younger, that's the biggest thing, unless we're just blessed with like, you know, we pop out of the womb and we're the next, you know, Apple prodigy or something. We just already know what it is. It's a lot of figuring out, you know. And so I recall LinkedIn had reached out to me to ask if I would give advice to high school graduates. And I'm like, well, you can give it to high school graduates, college graduates. The best thing I think any of those kids, adults, whatever it is, and even like, you know, people who are older can learn is that you don't need to figure it all out right now. And if I would have had that at that time, and also when I was younger, because I was made to believe that I had to figure it out and figure it out soon, right? So you're 16, 17 years old. And I think for me, that's why I was just like, okay, well, football seems like a logical choice. Like, you know, I can go to college, do well, you know, build up a rapport, get to the NFL, make a lot of money, and then figure it out from there. But it just didn't work like that.
And for the most part, it usually doesn't.
You know, and the tough thing is about being a kid at that time is that a lot of the adults, as good as they are, you know, they don't know either, right? So they're just they've never been told that you don't need to figure it out, you know? So for me, that time after Katrina was like, okay, what do I love? Like, what am I drawn to? And it turned out it was like psychology, social psychology, which studies people, right? So that's kind of where my love for psychology was emerging. And I followed that. And like, for the first time ever, I got like all A's in school.
That's awesome.
You know, because it was actually something that I wanted to do. Like, when I originally went, I think I was going to be a PE teacher, because fitness is my thing too as well. You know, I love fitness. So I'm like, oh, physical education, let me do that. And my mom looked at me, she said, what? She's like, you are not going to college to be no PE teacher. I was like, my physical education, like I'm helping people to, you know, and then look now 20 years later, this is what I'm doing, helping people with their bodies and stuff in their mind. So, you know, I really wanted to do that, but I couldn't do that. She took me into not the exciting part of business. Now, if I would have went into like marketing would have been like, I think really dope for me at that time. But I went into like productions, operations, management, and it was just boring. Like, I don't know if it was the teacher or just the subject in general, it was just not exciting because I had all this creative energy. And here's this guy just sitting at a board, just, okay. And I'm just like, oh, no.
There's got to be more.
Yeah, needless to say, I got D's across the board.
It matters.
You know, I think it was bad. But right after I was able to find psychology, like that gave me like new life. And I was at, I think at the time, Southern University, A&M in Baton Rouge. And I met this wonderful, wonderful professor. She was kind of like my grandmother, because at that time my grandmother had passed and I didn't really have like, you know, that type of female figure in my life. And so Dr. RJ Sims, I think she passed recently, but I took her as a, what do you call that?
Mentor?
Not a required class, but an elective. There you go.
Elective?
Yes, I think we call it elective in Louisiana or something
Sounds
like that. But so it was research in African studies, and I just like, okay, I just need a class, and it turned out to be really interesting. And Dr. Sims, the lady I was speaking about, she just turned it into like this creative writing class. And I always loved to write. In my high school where I attended, which was an all private school, they really like were sticklers. But at that time, it wasn't really like a fun thing. There was no freedom in it. It was just like right, wrong, good and bad, you know, and that turned me off, because that's not how life is, right? I don't think life is always necessarily dualistic, you know. But I'll never forget, I got an A in that class, and on the last paper I did, she wrote in quotes, she said, Shaun, use your pen to change the world. And
I have goosebumps. Like, look.
Yeah, she said, use your pen to change the world. And no one in my life had ever, that I could remember up to that point, given me that much confidence in myself. And I'm like, okay, so let me continue to do this. And I started to write more and more, got a little bit more confidence, and it just kind of came, you know, the more I did it, you know, and that led to like writing different things and like writing for different websites and just, it kind of gave me a new form of expression. And so all that stuff was just beginning to formulate. And then the whole acting thing came along.
Yeah. Your reel is spectacular.
Thank you. It's like I'm living like all these lives in one life.
That's what I'm saying. So many people would just say, can I just have that part of Shaun's life? I'll just take that part
Right,
of Shaun's life. And it's
right.
your life. And it's incredible. You have been blessed.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. I'm so grateful to be able to, like when and the funny thing is you don't notice until you look back. And now that I'm looking back, or whenever I look back, I can always see, okay, yeah, this is really a blessing. But yeah, so that led to acting, and I'll never forget. I was in New Orleans when I first started, and one of my friends was like, "Oh, I'm doing like this student film. I think you'd be great in it. You know, you just gotta stand around and look good." I say, "Oh, okay, I guess I can do that."
Clearly, you don't have a problem with that. So
I was like, "Okay, I guess I can do that." And then they turn around and say, "Well, you just got a couple of lines." I was like, "Okay, well, yeah, I can rock that." And I did it, and it was like a really enjoyable experience. And I'm like, I kind of want to do more of this. Like, so I went to I think Craigslist, and back then, before it was like about the Craigslist killers and stuff, it was actually legitimate. It was actually legitimate roles that you could find on there. And so yeah, it was shocking and surprising to me. So I found this this independent film, which I think was working through the University of New Orleans at the time. And I went and auditioned for it. And I mean, I was just raw. I didn't have like, I think my headshot was like a Polaroid. But, you know, I went in, I think I had like, I took a play I had sung in middle school and put that on my resume. It was just like crazy. And so, but they were really, really sweet. Yeah. They were really sweet. So they were like, "Oh, don't worry about that. Just, you know, give us the material. Like, you know, give us what you got." And so I went, and it was a cop who was basically arresting a guy living in a cardboard box, which that video is still on YouTube, which is kind of crazy to think about. I went in and I did the audition, and they were like, "That was really great. Thank you so much." And then, you know, you don't hear anything after that. It's just kind of like, okay, what next?
You're like, "Oh, I bummed out. They hated me."
Exactly. You know, so like, I just kind of like, okay, well, you know, wind up working out. And then they sent me an email, and they said that, "Oh, we loved you. We think you'd be perfect for the part of cop number 2 or something like that." And so I'm like, okay, that's really awesome. So, you know, I go through the motions and stuff. I booked this this student / independent film. And like I said, it's just something awakens within me. And it's like, wow, this is just creative bliss. And I love, like, even though like most people say making a movie is the worst thing possible because it takes so long, but when you have a passion for it, you're in heaven, you know. And for me, it was just observing all the stuff that goes into it, because there's so many moving pieces and it's such a cohesive effort that like it represents life in a lot of ways, you know?
Yeah, and you have that personality. You're just a sponge for everything around you. You don't just look at things through a tunnel. You're just taking it all in, and it was just, and you loved it. So it had to just been like the gospel singers were in the background and the lights were shining down on you, just like, here, this is awesome. I can feel it through you.
Yeah, it was so exciting because I had never loved anything like that other than football. So football was like the really first love of my life, like to the point where I was like, "Oh, no time for girls." Like distractions, you know, and I just zeroed in and focused. So that's why I was so hurtful when it didn't pan out. But with acting, it just kind of clicked. And so I did this. And then another opportunity came along. It's a movie. It's actually, I think it might be on Netflix. It's called Cirque the Freak, the Vampire's Assistant. And so I got a call from a local casting director. I didn't even have headshots yet or anything. Like, I was putting up Polaroids and things like that, and just because, you know, you kind of just go for it. It was great that I was so green, because if I had too much experience, I probably would have hindered myself.
You would have overthought it.
Yeah. You would have been like, "Oh, well, they're not going to take me seriously," or, you know, I know, like, you exactly overthink it, and then you don't take the action that you need to. But I went in, and she's like, "Oh yeah, you'd be perfect. It's featured," you know, which is a glorified extra situation, but you know, they're still important to the story, so don't let nobody tell you different.
I've never been one, so to me, you're a superstar.
Yeah. Thank you. But so I went to and it was the first big set I'd been on. And I'm trying to remember, Selma Hayek was one of the stars, William Dafoe, and I'm literally seeing all these people that I've watched on television my entire life. And so, we get ready to shoot our scene. I'm just like intense and just all into it. And like, I'm ready to do this. I love this. And, we shot it and the day was done. And then Robin, the casting director, calls me the next day and she says, Paul thinks that you might be good for this role as like, I think it's called a Vampanese, but it was like a vampire-ish character. And so he's like, he wants you to come in today. And I'm like, now? And she's like,
yeah,
as soon as
now.
you possibly can. I was like, oh gosh, Hollywood, they just don't care what you got going on. Come now, So I'm like, okay, that's cool. I'll come now. And so it's so funny. So Paul White directed the American Pie films. So he was like a really big jokester. And, but he was just so, you wouldn't tell unless you knew him. And so I remember going there and I'm just standing around for like 10 minutes, and that's the theme in Hollywood, hurry up and wait, right? Yeah. So I'm just standing around and he comes up and he shakes my hand. He looks at me. He said, yeah, you got the role. And then he just walks off. I'm like, no audition, no showing you my chops or anything like that.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just kind of like faded in a sense. And that
like, is this for real? Am I being spooked? Like, really real?
Yeah, it was so interesting to watch it happen like that. And like, that's something that you look at now and you realize how much of a blessing it is, because it doesn't always happen that way necessarily, right? But I was at the right place at the right time with the right, frame of mind, and it just happened, So that unfolded, and then they just started picking up. And before I knew it, I'm like, okay, I may need to think about moving to Los Angeles.
I might need an agent. I need to get rid of these Polaroids.
Yeah, and it was such a smooth transition. Like, I think, and this is a really good lesson, I think, for life, is that when you're not trying to be something, and like, I wasn't trying to be like the famous, like Tom Cruise or whatever. I was just like loving the process. And I'm like, okay, let me be myself. And as long as I be myself, good things will happen. And that just continued to happen. And I think it'll be 14 years coming up. And it's like, you go into a situation like this because there's a lot of insecurity in that industry, in a sense that you need approval from this one. You got to look this way. You got to have that. You got to have this. There's so much that you sort of forget your own divinity within that tells you that you're completely whole, you're completely amazing, you're completely wonderful just as you are, regardless of what anybody has to say. Amen. And so I had to really connect to that aspect.
Yeah.
I had to reconnect to that aspect of myself. And that really helped me, especially when there were times where jobs weren't coming in. And so it really helped me to dive in deeper. I think acting can really show you how tough you are, because
you have to have some thick skin, because being told no, and I'm just assuming here, I've never gone in that direction.
Yeah.
But sometimes you're told no and you don't even know why. And then I would imagine it's pretty easy to start second guessing yourself and not realizing they're not telling me no because there's anything wrong with me. I may not just be right for that role, but you've got to be strong.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And you've got to be rooted in your own self-worth and self-love. And that, I can be completely honest with you, that doesn't happen right away. But the one key is, how did I feel while doing this, and how did I feel afterwards?
Okay.
Right. So if I feel good about it, then I can walk away knowing I gave it my best. And that's that, like there's been times I think I've gone like a year and a half without booking anything, but then I use that time to do like a podcast, write these books, write for these publications, because I'm like, okay, I can still give back because I still have this experience,
Yeah, see, that's what's so incredible about you. Instead of just waiting around hemming and hawing, people just you know, they don't always lift themselves up. They get in the gloom and doom pit of life, and you miss the opportunity. And it seems like every time you could have sunk, you use that as an opportunity to lift. And you mentioned the books, and I may everybody, I'll make sure I link you to all the books so you know exactly what this man has been doing his whole life. He's truly remarkable. But it just, you have a repeating story, Shaun, of constantly lifting and lifting others in the process. You got some big shoulders.
Yeah. a lot of presses in lateral races. No, you know, it just, I think it's part of it's just part of how, it's a part of everything, you know, like life deposits certain things to us. And I think if we can take the perspective of it all works out for our highest good. I learned that from Louise Hay, like a long time ago. She was doing a seminar, and I mean, it was like way back when. And she was saying that just tell yourself everything that lies before me works out for my highest good. And I, when you truly believe that, and you truly like accept it and expect it, like it's gonna shape your life, you know? And that's kind of what the Universe Loves You book is about, right? Because in the introduction or the description of it, we ask, you know, that famous quote or famous question that Einstein asked, you know, you have to decide, do you live in a friendly, loving universe or in the one that's opposite of that, right? And so how you interpret that kind of shows you what your life is looking like. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes, I do. And I do believe that you know, bad things happen in life, good things happen in life, and bad things happen to really good people. That's just part of life. But it's this, I believe we have such capabilities internally to make our life what we want, even when we get down, to lift it back up. And I just believe in the human capability to put that vibe out. You know, there's all different terms for it, but oh, you're just saying everything I think, and you're just making it sound better. You're amazing. But keep going.
So a bit about the book, like it that was like a culmination of all those deposits. And it was just like my wife and I came together, and it was just really like, let's just give it, you know? And it's amazing when you write a book in a certain state of mind and you go back and you read it and you're like, wow, okay, that really makes sense.
That was deep.
You know, because what the divine has kind of shown me is that a lot of the stuff that I've done is ultimately for me, but it still can uplift people in the process, you know? And especially when you do it in just full love, right? So it's like, and I guess the number one question is, because, you know, our minds work in answering questions. It's like, okay, how can I contribute to humanity? How can I uplift humanity? You know, what expression of love helps me to impact humanity in the most indelible way possible, you know? And this book was born, and we just, I can remember we were going day after day, just going through it and trying to figure out. And I mean, we just touched on, I think, pretty much almost every subject possible within it.
When you just, sorry to interrupt you, I'm just kind of curious. There's not many people who would sit down and just commit to write a book, and then to sit down and commit to write a book with your significant other, be with your husband or with your wife. How was that process? Was she just ready to dive in? Does she have that same frame of mind as you? Are you guys kind of opposites? Did you bounce off of each other? So you kind of made the best of both worlds. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it actually works wonderful. So my wife is my best friend, you know, and we've had that relationship in addition to the passion and everything else that goes into a really good marriage. And I mean, when it comes to business, she's like, you know, she's cracking the whip. You know, me, I'm kind of like, in a sense, I'm a free spirit, but when I'm focused, I can really deliver. And so, you know, she just, you know, she had a plan. She was like, okay, you know, we need to really kind of make sure we get this done. I'm like, okay, let me commit to it, because so you can go in so many different directions, especially when you have that creative mind. But yeah, we bounce ideas off each other. We write up stuff, look over it, see if it works. We tried to arrange the chapters in a way where they would, kind of add some flow to the book.
Yeah.
And I mean, ultimately, it was just an expression of love that I think came together really nicely. So
I can't wait to read it.
yeah, it's I read it every morning. And if you check my stories on Instagram, I'll always post the page that I read to, because I always ask, instead of, if I don't have the time to sit down and read a book, I'll ask divine guidance to guide me to a page that makes sense, or that's in, my highest guidance for that day. And it'll be spot on. I was like, okay, let me post it. And then bang, inspires everybody else too as well,
I love it. And everybody, you mentioned Instagram and all, I'll make sure you are connected to all of his social media so you can follow this man and just enjoy what he has to say and what he's done. And he's just really, really incredible. And so again, sorry, continue.
No, you're good. You're good. Yeah. So that was the latest book that we've done, and it's just really proud of it because, like I said, it's the more you grow, the more you express, right? And the more you expand, the more emerges, because ultimately, I think from a spiritual standpoint, we're here to express our individual selves as God, and God not as an old man in the sky throwing lightning bolts, but as a loving, benevolent, kind presence that is geared toward self-actualization and unconditional love, which is one of the main topics in that book. That's the whole thing. Like, when I realized that it's all about every one of us actualizing ourselves, our true selves, our highest potential, and doing it in a way that's conducive to unconditional love, it kind of made life a lot easier, in addition to that friendly, loving universe thing. It really opened up so much more, because now all of a sudden, you release the judgment, right? You
Yes.
don't see things as if you got to put up armor or protection or, whatever it may be. Sure, you keep your wits about you, but you're not like, covering up or anything, trying to avoid life, because ultimately life is just a reflection of us, right?
Yes.
It's just our insides projected, outwardly. And that's a powerful truth to really understand, because you don't need to fix anything outside. You just fix it within yourself. And before you know it, everything's flowing smoothly,
That is so true. It's so nice to hear other people feel that way. And please, gosh, don't take this the wrong way, but to hear a man say it, because they're not usually as spiritual or emotional or as deep as a woman, but to hear that you're also you're an inspiration for other men, not just people, for other men out there, that it's okay to have emotion and to admit it and to wrap your arms around it and try to pay that forward. That's incredible.
Yeah. Emotions, I mean, you touched on it, right? If you don't release your emotions, they will kill you, because ultimately it's too much stored energy. And
yes.
I had to learn that, getting to a place where I could be okay with not being okay, and just really honoring anything that comes up, and you're so much freer because that energy is not stagnated within your auric field and stuff. But it's like, for guys, you really just gotta just let it go. And it doesn't have to be on to your spouse or anything like that. You can get some quiet time where you go and you can talk to yourself and just express it out loud. And it helps you to really kind of clear the palette as far as like your entire energy field goes.
That is great advice. And I know you wrote the book, and there was a point where you're reverend. So you did do preaching, and if I'm not mistaken, when I spoke to you, you did this with your wife as well?
Well, so we what do we do? Oh, we started this entrepreneur group with the Spiritual Center. And that's where the idea of an all-encompassing ministry based on Love and Prosperity was kind of born. So, and I really thought of it. And what I got, I think we were in Naples, was Heart of Christ. And so a lot of people ask me, well, that really sounds like a traditional Christian type church. I was like, well, I grew up Christian for like 30 something years of my life. So that's a big part of who I am. But when I say Heart of Christ, I'm speaking about the heart of Jesus, right? Which is compassion, love, kindness, acceptance, non-judgment, allowing everybody to come in. And so this was born kind of during the pandemic, and a lot of people were losing their jobs, or like the main source of income. What got me into prosperity was, in money especially, was to kind of prove that you don't need to rely on a job, because it's not the job that gives us, the income or the money. It's us reflected out, right? So a lot of times I feel like the universe will take the bottom out from underneath you when it knows you're focused on a source that's outside of yourself. So with Heart of Christ, it became this idea of, okay, how can I teach people how to, and the quote, it's so perfect. It says, I'm not rich because I have money because I'm rich. And so what that means is that internally, I know that I'm unlimited, right? And, people always say, well, okay, well, I know I'm unlimited, but my bank account doesn't really show it. Well, until your bank account shows it, like, that's when you'll know that what you're putting out is what the universe is picking up. So it became like a really fiery, like hardcore endeavor for me to like deliver as many messages as I could. And so it's online, which makes it accessible. And I just started cranking it out. And if you go to my YouTube, there's like 53 videos.
Oh yeah, you're good.
Thank you.
You're good.
But it was just like, it got back to that compassion, that love, and that kindness again, because, to understand how to live life fully is to understand that where we live in this day and age in South Florida, wherever you are, like, you need money. Like, if you don't have it, like, it'll be really hard to really reach your potential in the sense of like, resources and stuff. But it's also understanding that money is the effect, right? When we understand that we become the cause, and we're producing through expectation, through the proper mindset, we're producing what's showing up. It kind of makes it easier to know that, we have everything inside ourselves. And that's kind of Heart of Christ is.
That is just perfect. We have it all within us. And you to go back a little bit, you even said, sometimes you get knocked down, and I've always thought I've always felt internally that when I got knocked down, or when something wasn't going right in my life, it wasn't, oh, woe is me. I always thought the universe is trying to tell me something.
Exactly.
It's trying to make me pivot. It's trying to say, stop. You need to zig when you zag. You should have zigged, and trying to tell you. It's trying to tell you, open up your eyes. You're not going in the right direction. Turn now. And so many people don't look at it that way. And it's just, that is a defining moment. And you're out there doing that. You're a perfect example of that. And it's just, I kind of have chills, because I've always just felt like when I get sucker punched, when a guy throws me a sucker punch, he's not hitting, he's trying to take my head and turn it. And so to hear you say it, it's just like, wow, are you in my head? Like, it was awesome.
We're vibing.
Yeah, because it's true. I'm going to keep listening to this podcast over and over. Just the way you talk, you just make sense.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I know you had to get away from the preaching a bit. Are you going back into the acting? Where
So,
I know you've got the book coming out. It sounds to me like you have a whole nother book left in you, but
well, yeah. So there is a book that I've completed. My wife is helping me edit it right now because she's amazing at that and just design. And it's called The Money Cure: Healing Your Relationship to Money. That has kind of taken some time to sort of get together, and I'm finishing that up. And then, the acting thing just kind of picked up. So it's interesting because for me, I always have to center myself to know, okay, what direction am I needed in the most? Because, most people think like, well, how do you do anything when you got all this stuff going on? But it's not, a million different things happen at once. It's like on certain days, it's different. Like this morning, it was fitness, training people with fitness. And then now it's a podcast, so you kind of direct your energies where you feel led. And I always ask for divine guidance as far as where's my heart leading me? Where am I needed the most? And it never fails that I always end up at that exact place. So right now the ministry is on a bit of break, but I mean, there's tons of content, tons of, videos to watch, some webinars, I think, thrown in there as well. And it's just, if you want to really build a better relationship with money, just sit down and have at them, because I can guarantee if I understand something, I understand that concept. And to me, that's big because, I grew up kind of poor. So, it was really kind of diving into that, that desire that was kind of, I don't ever want to experience this again. And then having that emerge from that dedication and that, desire. So it's awesome.
that's great. So you mentioned that the acting's picked back up. Is there anything you can tell us that you might be?
Well, I just finished a regional commercial down here in Florida. There's some things that are kind of, it's so interesting because you'll go and you'll audition for something and you won't hear anything. And after doing this for a while, you kind of just forget it because you're like, okay, whatever. And I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm gonna do it anyway. With so much self-tape going on, I always try to submit self-tape through YouTube so I can monitor how many views are on the audition tape that I did to see if they're consistent.
You gotta get perspective.
Yeah, because I want to know, like, okay, if they watch it 6 times, okay, they really like it because they're figuring out different things. Or if they don't watch it this many times or whatever, so I'm very calculated with that. But often it's just, you do this, and the great thing is now is like, I'm not so, I need the role. I just do what I got to do and I let it go. And so then you find yourself where somebody will call a month down the road, oh, we just love your audition and we wanted to bring you in and such and such. So it's kind of at that point right now where I'm just in the waiting, because last month was a really, really busy month. And now it's just like, okay, now what?
All right.
But as it comes,
I can't wait to see what you might be doing. But I'm going to go back and I'm going to ask the question that I asked in our intro call, because I just found it fascinating. Because I don't know, I guess my inner fight scene actress kind of came out when I was talking to you. So I know there's got to be others out there like me. So if when you go on to Shaun's all his social media stuff, and you can look at all the reels and the different movies he's been in, the different seasons he's been, he has got some seriously intense fight scenes. This man kicks ass. And I had to ask him, like, how did, I've watched, the John Wick movies and, 007 and all that stuff, and watching you. And it's just this I thought this beautifully choreographed, you step in, I'm going to turn, you throw left, and you said, it's actually sometimes not. Yeah. And your true take on what I didn't know, I thought was spectacular. So tell us what it's like to shoot an intense fight scene.
Okay. So it's work, and if you're lucky, because I remember we talked about this, the one from Self-Sacrifice, we missed our rehearsal time. So we had to make it all up right there on the spot. But in most cases, these things kind of come together. Like if it's a really, if it's a production like a John Wick or like some kind of Marvel, I remember watching the series Daredevil on Netflix, and they would take weeks to plan out their fight scenes. It is just monotonous. And so what happens is a lot of times when you're doing it over and over and over, somebody tends to get clocked, get kicked. I was doing this movie last year, Journey, where I was like kind of like the lead warrior and stuff like that. We were doing this sword fighting scene, except with these sticks. And my colleague hit me like literally square in the teeth with a stick. And like, if you watch the video, you can see me kind of go, and I just kind of played into it. But it's like, I was bleeding. It kind of split my lip a little bit. But it's like, that's kind of what happens because you're trying to remember choreography. There's so many things that are going on. You want to get it right. You got to make sure you're not looking into the camera, because sometimes there's just a tendency to like look towards the camera, look in the camera. There's so many moving parts to it. And then you got to do it again and again and again. And if you have like an annoying director, he can't get enough. I'm like, this dude doesn't need like 25 takes of this. Like, why is he making us go over and over and over? And, also being a stuntman before, sometimes you would leave productions just so beat up, like having to jump in an ice tub or something, because you did it so many times that like the saying was, somebody's bound to get hit. Let's just hope nobody loses any teeth, So it's a fun process, and it's fun when it comes together, but it can be long and drawn out. And you just hope that you get the opportunity to rehearse, because imagine going to Disney World and having to dance on stage and you had no rehearsal. It just kind of would be a mess.
Whoa, give me a stomach ache. That would be horrible.
But when the dance is choreographed and everybody's in sync, it's a beautiful thing, and it's fun too.
Yeah, no. Watching you, I was glued. I mean, this is why you're so incredible. Like, I was watching your fight scenes, and I watched the commercials, and I've watched you do your speaking, and I'm going to dive into your books. And you're like a magnet. Like, there's an energy that comes out in everything that you do. And I just, you love giving back and paying it forward and sharing, what you've learned in life. But I just hope that me saying this, or people watching the podcast, or even before this, that you realize that you do make a difference. And even if you're not told that often, you do. You are an incredible man. And I have to imagine, hearing about your wife, she's kind of an incredible woman too.
Yeah, she really is. We complement each other well. And honestly, it all gets back to understanding that, it's about love. And when love, like true, non-judgmental, fully accepting love is the starting point, any relationship can prosper, can thrive. And, you become best friends, you fall in love with each other, you're drawn to each other. It's just having that somehow or another that clicked, and like, we're coming up on 10 years now. I think it gets better and better every day.
That makes me so happy. You're one of the good guys, Shaun, and it has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, to get to know you, to bring you to people who didn't know you were out there, and that can follow you or get inspired by you, or both, or everything. And I'll make sure all of the social media, all the books, everything that you're doing, everybody's aware of, because I just believe just having you in the back of someone's mind, like just your voice, your words, people are going to just be so lifted and inspired, just to maybe do better at their own job, or maybe better in their own family, or better within themselves, maybe judge less and judge themselves less. Whatever they take from it, I know they'll take something. And I know I have, and I just can't wait for people to meet you and just really just enjoy you as much as I have.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. That means a lot. Thank you for reaching out to me and giving me the opportunity, because it's fun. You know, it's fun when you can leave your imprint on people, and also an imprint that makes them feel good about themselves, or better, however much it is. I'm happy. I'm happy to be able to express, you know, my authenticity, and yeah, that makes me happy, and I love people, and it kind of just sort of comes and it just, you know, I don't even really know how to explain it, but for the first time in life, I'm at a loss for words. But just mainly thank you for this opportunity, because it just, you can never get moments back. You can't get time back. So you just have to make the most of it. And you make the most of it by truly being yourself and offering that to the world.
Thank you, Shaun. And I'm going to be following you. I'm going to be paying attention to what you're doing. Shoot me an email every now and then if you got something coming up, so I can watch it and put the word out. And again, thank you so much for being part of Shannon Confidential and taking the time out of your very busy schedule to just speak with me. It's appreciated more than you will ever know.
Oh, you're very welcome. Will do. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. I had a blast.
Here we are, be kind. And this is one of my more fun things, when I try to take a quote or a saying or something that relates to what we talked about today. And usually I research different people who quote things, but the fact is, Shaun Grant's got some amazing quotes himself. When I was doing his research, it was really hard to narrow it down to one quote. But I really like this one. And he said, compassion and generosity, when genuinely felt, is one of the greatest feelings in the world. And that is by Reverend Shaun Robert Grant. And now it's time for today's Style Secrets. And this is where I pay something forward that I've used, my friend used, somebody used. We loved it. We couldn't wait to share it. So this is my way of paying it forward to you, so we can all just enjoy the good things in life. And I have to tell you, I'm going to promote her again. Dar's Design Boutique. This is my girlfriend, Darlene. We cheered together with the Dolphins. She is just the meaning of entrepreneurship. She's just busting her butt. She does marketing items, shirts, backpacks, paper goods, whatever you want. She designs them. She helps you. She is your sole contact from beginning to end. I love her. She does all of my Shannon Confidential merchandise items, which you can find on my Facebook page. Just click shop. But I have to tell you, even please, you know, I would love to see somebody out there wearing my Shannon Confidential merchandise. But even if you don't mind, use her. If you have an event or your business and you need some merchandise or a shirt designed or a family reunion, whatever you can think of, trust me, this girl can do it for you. So Dar's Design Boutique, love her. Use her. Thank you, everybody.